Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Focus State. On this gloomy, rainy morning, we are joined today by Modestus and Stephanie, UX designer and product designer. And we are going to have a conversation today about AI. The hype, they very much talked about AI and its effect on the user experience. Because we're seeing a lot of software companies, products, small and big, integrating AI into their solutions in ways. Some companies have been doing it a long time without anybody knowing, and others are they talk proud and big about it because it's also part of some sort of marketing strategy for some. We're going to talk about how that AI can be integrated maybe a bit more thoughtfully and better in a way into these products. We're going to talk about some of our own experience with. We've also been designing a few features for some of our clients with AI in it. Well, first of all, welcome. Hi, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to be here again.
The first question I thought could be interesting to talk about was to get some sort of examples, just to set the stage, examples of AI that you've seen, you've worked on, that is integrated nicely into like a SaaS product or any piece of software, really. I don't know if you could start with this.
Yeah, well, from my own, let's say, personal experience, I think my first encounter with generative AI was probably ChatGPT. I've used a little bit more primitive chatbots in the past, but like ChatGPT was kind of like the breakthrough for everybody.
Yeah.
And then going forward, I think I've discovered obviously like Grammarly's AI features. It's just very seamless way of, adjusting text on the fly, helping you to draft emails or Slack messages.
Yeah.
Another feature that kind of stood out for me was Notion AI features, like the suite of their AI features. It works so well because it's essentially a note app, right? And you can do so many things in there, like the same things that you could do more or less with ChatGPT, you can do it in there. And now it's in your notes and it's structured and you can, build a knowledge base so much faster than you previously could.
Exactly.
So that's more or less from like personal experience. Now, after doing a little bit of research, I've also like found out that there are a lot more companies that obviously incorporated AI into their workflows, and one of which stood out was Salesforce, Einstein. And as you guys know, Salesforce owns Slack. So it's a huge CRM system that's powered by a lot of your customers' data, right? Like, and it spans across sales and customer experience, right? Like, and customer support. So there's a lot of data that it can feed from, right?
Yeah.
And so they have this chat assistant called Einstein.
Great name.
Yeah, very, very original. And again, like you can just draft emails right in Salesforce. You can just type in the customer's name. It'll give you a summary. You can have a call with that customer and transcribe and, summarize your call notes, which is awesome. You can also do perform actions in there. So it can give you action suggestions based on the context.
Yeah.
Like
that's clever.
So maybe it can even log calendar activities, right? So it's just making all that tedious work, that boring stuff, a little bit more maybe enjoyable, like it's just instead of, navigating somewhere else, or even potentially opening a different app to log calendar activity. Now you can just do it in a couple of clicks.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome especially for people like me that are not very structured. Let's call it like that. And obviously, because Salesforce owns Slack, Einstein is also integrated in Slack, and it works very well. And I do believe it's not really available on the lower tier plans,
Right.
of course. But these features are focused towards enterprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Slack also has some nice features that are not available in a free plan, so it can provide you a nice summary in terms of maybe threads or messages that you need to look into first, based on your, behavior and activity, which is cool. Again, like you don't really need to navigate all those channels and go through thread one by one. It just gives you a summary. And
that's a classic value.
Those are the classic use cases anyway. But it's just nice to actually see it in app, and I would like to experience it one day, because I haven't tried those features yet.
No, on the enterprise levels,
No.
What about you, Stephanie? Do you have any great examples?
I think I can give one example for one of our clients. So during the last weeks, we work for ProBinder. So ProBinder is a software for property management, and we have designed a handbook. So it's documentation. So all the users can integrate documentation or files related to the property. And these files can be linked to the chat and the conversation.
Right.
So all the users, if there is like a problem, the AI can give an example of, okay, you have a problem about the elevator. So now we will find maybe your solution in the documentation. And it's everything in one place. So it's really clever for the user, and it's really efficient for them to find the good documentation.
Right. Yeah. So similar to Modestus' examples, like
classic.
The AI stuff really is a great way to eliminate some of that manual like work, finding stuff, finding documents, finding earlier conversations in Slack, and being able to summarize them in a great way using AI. If you were to consider in terms of like some of the first steps a team should take if they are pondering, if they want to take that step to add AI in some capacity through some sort of maybe existing integration, let's say just slapping OpenAI in there somehow, what are some of the first steps you kind of recommend them to do from a user experience perspective or product development perspective?
I think one of the first steps is to identify the problem, and it's really similar to like other features. When we want to design and implement a feature, we really need to think about the problem first, and maybe the AI is a solution for this problem, but it's not always the case. So we need to see if it's the best way to implement this feature.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, it's funny because in that process that Stephanie mentioned, it's very possible that you might find a solution that doesn't need AI at all. So I think, if I were to answer this question, I would obviously start from the user. You always need to start from the user and have their needs in mind. It's if your motivation is not that, I think you're kind of starting off from a wrong place. So you always need to keep the user in mind. And assuming that you understand how the technology works, how the machine learning and large language models work in general, you would need to maybe find ways how you can solve certain user pain points within your application. And I would always start small. I wouldn't just suddenly introduce a huge AI feature. I would always start small and try to find small ways to make their life easier, by maybe reducing the time they need to complete some manual, small, tedious tasks.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
and another important thing is to find a good AI as a service supplier.
Right.
So there's plenty out there in the market. And obviously, the most well known is OpenAI API, but there are more to look into, right? And so you need to find the right partner. That's something that you also need to look into.
For sure.
Each partner or each solutions will have its downsides and strong sides too. So you need to be aware of that.
Yeah, some models are built different, like with different purposes.
Yeah, definitely.
To do that initial research, and also the kind of plays into what you guys said, but like having the data for it to actually be efficient. Like model that you adding AI to the handbook, for example, requires that the handbook has a lot of good data, like a good registry where you can find the data you need. And the same with Salesforce, Figma, and all of these big giants have a lot of data, and that really helps them make an AI that actually provides good value to their users.
Definitely.
Where it might be a bit more difficult as a small startup to be able to create an AI or create the model that provide that good value, at least initially.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, that the data is a big concern.
Absolutely.
Like if the data is not sufficient, the model is not going to be like, you won't get the results you were expecting.
No.
Right? It's not going to work in the same way.
No. No, that might have a negative effect on the user experience. Yeah. Okay. There's also the commercial side of things, I think, is worth mentioning with the pricing structures of some of these AI models, and it can get quite expensive depending on what you need it for. Every trigger anywhere in any application will cost some sort of small amount, but it all can quickly grow.
It all adds up.
Yeah.
That's why even on the for bigger, let's say, SaaS companies, they tend to they will not provide the service for free.
No.
So all the AI features are going to be paid, available for paid plans.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what we usually see. But that makes sense. That's a commercial decision too. So there's some commercial strategy, and there's the user experience. A lot of like a big wide spectrum to consider when you want to get AI into the product experience. We talked a bit about using AI to solve manual tedious tasks, which is obvious. That's what we usually see. Is there any ways you've seen AI being used, taking a step further and like putting some personalization in that, using AI in a way that not only solves tedious tasks, but actually makes this experience, the user experience in a certain product, better for you as a user or an organization?
I think we can talk about Airbnb.
I love that example.
Because on Airbnb we have like everyone from everywhere in the world.
Yes.
And we need to communicate between the landlord and the tenant, but we don't sometimes speak the same language.
Right.
So we really need to have like an easy communication. And there is an AI feature, so we don't really see it's AI, but when we write a message, the other person receives the message in their own language.
Yeah.
So we don't need to translate before sending a message, and it's really fluent, the discussion.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really nice feature.
Exactly. For both sides.
Yes.
For the tenant who can write in their preferred language and me.
Yes, you just speak in your language.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
after Airbnb translate for the user.
It works very well. Tried it a few times. What about you?
Well, I don't really have any like concrete or tangible examples, but I do. I was thinking the other day about potential opportunities. I think there's a lot about making search work better.
Like the search function?
The search functionality. The big old search bar.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of potential there, and I think Slack is already doing that. It's just based on your search query, and of course based on your user data and your behavior in app, it can kind of find and pick the right, I don't know, channels, messages, files, right? Grab it for you. Same could be applied for Notion or maybe your Notes app, right?
Right.
Just enhancing that search and discovery.
Yeah.
And I think another way would be just to helping the users to organize their data.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very messy person, so for me that would be a big selling point. Like if Asana could help me out, maybe give me a nice summary of, you know, what deadlines are, or giving me an alert that okay, I need to act on this.
Right. Very proactive.
Very proactive, like giving me these actionable insights, right? Yeah. Or I don't know, like organizing my notes in Notion, right?
Right. Yeah, I've seen that somewhere in something. I can't remember what it is, but there are great examples of.
That's not necessarily personalization. I would
maybe not, but the idea of making it your own like space in any kind of software is very nice.
Yeah.
And the idea of AI being able to help with that.
Yeah.
I think there is also the recommendation. Like, for example, on Netflix
Right.
or Spotify. On Netflix, you have like the suggestion. So based on your previous, what you have seen
Yeah.
and watch, or just what you liked.
Yeah.
And so you have the list. Also on Spotify, every week we have like a personalized song and what you would like.
Right. Yeah. A playlist of all the songs from all around the world that you might be interested in.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of small personalization tricks that kind of like in consumer grade software. It's not obvious necessarily, but it's
no.
It's very helpful. And
I think all those features that have been there for consumers
yeah,
for quite some time now, I think now they're kind of slowly being shifted towards SaaS products.
Yeah.
Like we're like all that technology behind, I don't know, Netflix recommendations, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of, that could be implemented for Notion search or Asana search, or like all those examples that I mentioned. It's essentially recommending you the right thing based on the given context.
Yeah, based on you, yeah.
And based on your behavior, right? And the way you use app, you know, like it can detect patterns, your usability patterns, maybe. Yeah,
it's true. That's
pretty much.
Yes. Also, maybe in Apple with the iOS, like when you search, it's like on all your applications. So you don't necessarily need to be in your message to search for a message.
No.
If we take the example of the photos, we can just search for a keyword like cat or sunset.
That's what I said, yes.
And we will just have the photos related to this keyword.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same with faces, and like I can search for my friend and always pops up if I wanted to. Yes. Okay, very nice. In terms of, I think a lot of existing companies that's been working on this software for quite some time now and have a very complicated system or a lot of features. They're kind of looking towards AI to figure out how to use it in a good way. So once they've kind of figured out all the foundational stuff that we talked about initially with the commercial part and the strategy and how to do it, from a user experience perspective and also UI's perspective, how would you? I think the real challenge is how do we put it in our software without kind of messing up the existing user experience that people have been using for a long time, without it being like, see this brand new AI thing, it's taking over your main screen or your primary feature. So it doesn't ruin the existing experience for the people who maybe don't want to use the AI features. Do you have any recommendations, any tips and tricks in terms of that?
I think maybe Stephanie is more qualified to answer this question than me, but I think that there is no one-size-fits-all answer in here.
No.
So it will always depend on your business and your product and your user base. I think that, again, I think I mentioned that previously, that starting small is always a good idea, because starting small allows you to slowly increment and build it up over time, as opposed to just slapping something big on top of your existing structure, right?
Yeah.
And hoping that it'll work. Usually it doesn't. So I think, just finding small bits, like, or maybe there's some processes, some specific in-app processes that could be optimized with the help of machine learning, something that can be automated, for example. Starting small in general.
Yeah.
That would be my piece of advice.
Yes, I agree with Modestas. And I think we also have to maintain familiarity. Like to don't change everything in the application, but implement one by one what we would like. And also maybe test with the user if the feature is relevant or no.
Right.
And how we can improve. And yes, if the user used the AI feature as we expect.
Yes. Exactly. That's always interesting. Before doing all the initial work, figure out if there is a pain point we're actually solving with this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this is more anecdotal actually, but we started using Zapier for some automation tasks, and I've never used it before, but used a few weeks ago with having to make one of these SAPs, like making one of these automation tasks. It's usually like a classic tree structure. If you do this, what happens? The thing that takes up, like, I want to say 30% of the screen when I create a new automation task is like a very huge chat box, like a text area where I can write in what do I want to do. Like if I wanted to make every time we post something on LinkedIn, I want to throw it into Slack. I could just write that in natural language, which the idea is cool.
Yeah.
But I don't want to use it. Like I don't feel.
Can't you collapse it?
I think I can maybe exit it, but I haven't seen it. I've used the software now 3 times and I haven't really looked for it or found it, because I'm in there with a purpose.
Yeah.
And I want to find that, create something new button. And I don't know, it's just something like that. It's just it's nice for the people who use it. But for me personally, it's just a frustration really, because I'm not interested in it. I don't trust it to be able to do the thing I want. I want to do it myself.
Yeah.
But I think that's, at least for me, anecdotally, that's like a very frustrating implementation. It doesn't ruin my day, but it's just the idea of that implementation just kind of bugs me. And
Again, the idea was good.
Sure.
But the execution,
yes,
maybe could use some optimization, right?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's just the greatest thing for 90% of Zapier users, but not me.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. And you could figure out some of that. I'm sure they've done a lot of user research, I hope. Such a big organization, so I'm sure there's good value in having such a big chat box right in the middle of where I would normally just pick a few applications.
Yeah. But it should be easy to opt out from it, right? And not have it disturb you, right? Like
exactly.
If you just want to see the entire process in front of you, and then you know exactly what you want to do,
right?
It shouldn't be there, right?
In focus, no. I should be able to. I probably can, honestly, but it wasn't very obvious to me anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas another good example from outside of the table, you mentioned PropBinder earlier, with the customer support chat they have, like this message thread, where we just have to add a sprinkle of AI to make it more productive for the customer support people to be able to generate some messages. Very classic, but it wasn't very intrusive the way we added it. Like it was a little button in the bottom left corner of the UI, and if you don't know it's there, or if you don't want to use it, it's not gonna take up or ruin the user experience for the people who's just comfortable doing it the old-fashioned way, which I think is worth highlighting too. But there's many ways to go about it, and there's no one way, as you said initially.
No.
But it is user research is a good place to start. And some people are going to be a bit maybe upset about it or don't want to use it, and that's fine. A way to get out of it, like not use it if you want to. I think it's some solid advice for getting these kinds of things.
As you say, be really integrate in the software, not just like for the chatbot, a small button fixed in the...
Yeah, like the floating.
Yeah. But sometimes that makes sense.
Sometimes that makes sense.
I'm sure. Like, and we've done that too. Like having a floating button down in the bottom right corner because like a global interaction, which makes sense.
But Salesforce does the same thing with their chat assistant.
Yeah, okay. MailChimp does the same too.
And same, I don't know if I can mention it, but the accent.
Yes, exactly. That was what I was thinking about too.
Yeah.
Where it's floating down in the bottom right corner. It's not intrusive or anything. It's just there. Little hotkey and you can enter it. Anyway. Do you see any pitfalls? Besides the ones we've mentioned already, any pitfalls while integrating or when integrating AI into your platform or your features or your product in general?
Yeah, I can. Well, off the top of my head, like I think I already spoke about it, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Not having a clear objective. Like not having the pain points in mind that you're trying to solve. Because at the end of the day, the main objective is to make your user's life easier, right? So if that's not your main objective, if you're not thinking about that, if you want to simply market yourself as a tool that now has AI, I know and I understand the pressure of it, but the value comes first, and then technology behind it, it's a secondary thing.
Right.
It's always going to be a secondary thing.
Yeah, I love that.
Then I think you mentioned insufficient data. So not having sufficient amount of data will not going to bring you the results that you would like to, or you would expect.
No.
And then lastly, the privacy concern. Most of like 99% of the time, you will have some sort of supplier or partner, right?
Right.
You're going to work with in order to bring those AI capabilities to your tool. So now, not only that you need to ensure that prompts and AI outputs in your app are being kept safely, right? And the sensitive information that is specified in those prompts and outputs is protected.
Yeah.
But you also need to know and understand how does your supplier will deal with that data.
True.
I think we're here in Europe, we're pretty good at it. And we got all the GDPR laws, but yeah, still worth mentioning.
For sure.
Because again, like in EU, I don't really know if we have that many AI as a service suppliers.
I don't know.
I know. So it's just worth keeping in mind.
Right.
The privacy and the security should be taken seriously.
Yeah, that's true. With all the American companies. Yeah, that's also just to continue that thought with the whole customer experience around, which leads into the user experience too of using any kind of product. If you're not interested in whatever this brings, for privacy concerns or whatever it might be, being able to opt out and say, I'm not interested in being part of this.
Yeah.
Either not using the features, that's not the biggest thing, but just learning on my data, on my behavior is, it's big. Everybody's talking about it, but it's for good reason.
Do not act like Adobe. Don't do that.
No. Do you have any...
I think I agree for the data on the privacy, because we have some sector like in social or for software and the hospital.
Right.
They can be really, they can hesitate for the AI features because it can be, they don't really know how it works with which data, if they will use the data from their patients.
Yeah.
So it's really important to be clear about the feature.
Yeah. Yeah, the sensitive data.
Yes.
That's a good point. And actually, well, it's not really sensitive data, but we designed recently in the handbook you spoke about earlier, we have this sensitivity function. Like you can say, is this sensitive information or not? And which kind of leads into, like that would be something the AI should probably ignore, for example, if the AI is learning on this data in the handbook. That's a great point. but it's not really in the same lane. But there is something to be said about the sensitive data.
It could be nice to allow the user to say, okay, I don't want to use this data for the AI program.
Yeah, like granular. I'd be able to say patient data, for example. No go. Yeah, that's a good point. I think another pitfall we were designing something here for to integrate AI on a consumer level, so users could easily not be part of. If you have to submit like a ticket to a customer support system, they were able to get some upfront information, and we wanted to go like all in on the AI functionality just to minimize the amount of tickets that got through to the end customers, so they didn't have to use support time on something that the AI could potentially suggest or fix for them upfront.
Yeah.
We didn't go in that direction because of sufficient data potentially, but also just because the end clients who were to say, do we want to use AI or not? They didn't feel safe about the idea of having the AI speak on their behalf to their clients or their customers or their tenants or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Which also is kind of an interesting idea, that like a pitfall of the AI kind of damaging your brand or damaging the customer experience on behalf of you without you knowing is also like interesting to consider. If are we ready to kind of launch this feature or present this to our end customers, because it might have some negative backlash.
Very good one, actually. And I think it's also like when you're providing features like that, I think it's important to give your users some level of control. Like, it's better not to have this feature at all than to have it forced on them, right? Like, not everybody will feel comfortable having a chatbot answering tenant inquiries, right? So for those people who don't, they should be able to opt out from it,
right?
Because for some it might make sense. You know, a lot of people use a lot of businesses use intercom.
Yes,
and I don't know if you've heard of. There's that they made a big fuss about their chat assistant called Finn.
Yeah,
and a lot of companies outsourcing their,
the customer support or
the customer support to the chat assistant.
Yeah,
and so for some companies it might make sense, right?
Sure.
Like if you have sufficient amount of data about your customers, right, and like if you have a big knowledge base,
yes,
right, and you make it. You power it with a good amount of data and it works smoothly. Why not, right? There are some questions that could be answered in a snap.
Yes, exactly.
There's like, I might also want my customer support personnel focus on more important issues,
right?
Rather than answering yes, no questions.
Yes.
So in that case, there has to be a choice.
Yeah.
That
the human touch or like the systematic
at least if there is no answer with the AI, give the possibility to change and speak with a human,
right?
To get the answer.
At any point. That's a classic balance with the chatbots. That's true. I have a personal gripe with the whole calling things AI, and now it seems not silly, but since Apple did their thing with the whole AI and not mentioning AI in their keynote speeches and new product features, that was kind of like an eye opener. But I think AI is a thing that is here to stay, and we spoke about in another episode too about naming your companies, and a lot of companies are naming themselves something with AI, and at some point this is kind of just going to be such a natural thing to have AI and use AI that AI just seems. And mentioning AI in your features, generate with AI, like we do in some of our designs, might become redundant and just unnecessary because it's just such a natural thing.
It will.
And Apple leading that is very nice.
It will.
It's a good argument when Apple does it. But we could do something similar. All right. last question before the break. We'll have a short break, and then we're going to talk about workflows as designers and product developers. But how do you balance the AI automation versus like user control?
It's really interesting. I think we need to give the choice for the user to use AI or no, or at least give some suggestion, not only one. Like, for example, for Google Map, they suggest you like a route for if you want to be to go somewhere, but there is one suggested itinerary, but you have the choice to choose another one. They just give like this one is faster, this one maybe there is cheaper because you don't have to go in the
motorway or something. Yeah.
Yes, but just give the choice. And also, yes, if it's possible to don't use AI, for example, with the chatbot, the example, it's nice to have a different option.
Yeah. Anything to add on that?
I agree to everything Stephanie said.
I agree too.
Having a possibility to opt out from those features, it's important. Not everybody will be comfortable using it.
No.
Also do feel like even if we opt in and we choose to use it, there still need to be some sort of layer of customization. And it's also like I think it's extra challenging when you're dealing with like automation. And if you, I don't know, when a good example would be our marketing automation apps or solutions. So let's say you're uploading a data set, right? Could be long CSV file with 102 columns. And now you need to map, right? But they might have a feature that will do it for you, right? But when it happens, it's still important for you as a user to being able to review it and understand that automation is happening under the hood.
Good point. Yeah.
So, like, if we're dealing with automation, it cannot be done in the background and, like, well, it should be done in the background.
Right.
But the important part is for you to be aware of it.
Yeah.
And for you to be able to review it.
Right. Yeah, as a human, yeah.
Because if it's done in the background and there's no visual feedback,
yes,
I mean, we might as well pack it up. Right? Like, it's not supposed to do job for us. It's supposed to, help us to do our job, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be our assistant. So we still need to be there and be on top of on top of everything that is happening, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, just being able to provide that feedback and so the user could act based on it, right?
Yeah.
Some actions can be a little bit destructive or like you want to revert something too, right?
Sure.
So having an ability to do that and some sort of level of preferences so you can customize how the automation
how the AI
and carry it out.
Yeah,
right?
makes sense.
Can't really think of specifics, but I
think for the
customization.
Yes, we can also talk about like Grammarly or Notion.
Yeah.
Because when they write something for us, we have the choice to say, okay, now I want to summarize this text or be more casual, for example. So we are able to add our own perspective for this result.
I think what I'm hearing you say is, both of you, is the automation part. AI is wonderful to kind of get us somewhere, and then having the possibility to either upfront proactively customize something or after the fact kind of tweak or make it your own, whatever it might be, is very necessary. Like that balance.
Yeah.
Nice.
And if you're dealing with generative AI, right? Because that's the the main topic today anyway. I feel like in that case, generative AI is prompt based, right?
Sure.
So a lot of customization that you would have as a user would be through the way you enter the prompt, right? But sometimes like it's not enough, at least for me. And I would always appreciate some UI controls that, could at least also give me a good idea of what I can customize, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like what's possible,
Sure.
If it's an image generation tool, like I want to see a list of styles that I can choose from, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody knows, has that information in the back of their head, right?
No.
And so, having those UI controls, just so you could, even prompt it even better.
Yeah. Improve whatever it gives you. We spoke a bit about the whole adding AI to improve the UX from a kind of design perspective, a bit in terms of getting it in there and doing it nicely. I think it's worth talking also about just internally as designers and developers and product owners. We can speak mostly to the design part, but I think we also have some perspectives on like the general product development workflow process of how AI can improve that in a positive way. So not just from the end user perspective, but actually from your internal workflows to optimize. So I thought we could start by talking a bit about how AI can make design and the development process a bit easier, and like how we can integrate it into our workflows and make it better potentially, or at least remove some of that manual work that we talked about from the end user side on our side to improve our workflows. How and what we can kind of do with AI in that regard. Do you have any good examples from how you guys work yourselves?
I think I really used AI to improve the copy. But for two different things. I really like using for challenging me when I want to write a copy for a button, for example, or for onboarding instruction, like just to be sure that the message is clear. And I ask ChatGPT, for example, for 5 other examples than what I think it's good, and I choose the best one, and it gives me more suggestion.
Right.
And also for in the interface, not necessarily about the copy for the interface, but just to avoid lorem ipsum. I really like to create fiction data.
Yeah.
But for the specific thematic.
In the context, yes. So we get a more realistic view of how data would behave in that certain context. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's the last example that Stephanie mentioned. So cool. It was so mind-blowing for me to discover that it's suddenly possible just taking a screenshot of a UI, piece of UI with lorem ipsum in it, and have like the copy generated for you. And especially like, I don't know, yesterday I was working, I think it was a table view, right? And you remember the projects, and then the sources, right? And sources. So I just had to calculate the total amount of errors for project and like kind of break it down for each source so it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So the numbers adds up, right?
Yeah.
Using for those kind of purposes, it's really satisfying, at least for me.
Yeah, same.
Another thing that I do
Sorry?
Good. Just stop now. It's no, it's you. It was just the
Battery?
Oh, is it okay?
Carry on. Okay.
All good.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I've got plenty.
Okay. What else to improve the process?
At the beginning of the process, we can use AI also to generate like personas, and it just gives us an idea of what personas can be good for our project, on just like a reference.
Yeah.
And after we can adjust, but give us like a general idea.
Yeah, like initially. Especially when we're working in an industry or a space we know nothing about.
Yes.
Like data compliance or very fintechy stuff. It's nice to have some sort of reference.
Yes.
It's a great point.
And just to boost the creativity, I think it's nice. Like using, I don't know, but Midjourney, if we want to work on a specific field, but we don't really know, maybe we can ask to create some thing with colors, so we can see which color is used in this field. And maybe just to
inspiration,
to brainstorm.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's very great tool for brainstorming, just spitting out ideas quickly. Yeah, I would be very careful with, like, I don't know, stuff like personas or just, UX research in general, just because it can spit out a lot of nonsense.
Sure.
So if you're doing that, double, triple check.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah, that goes without saying.
Yeah, or validating it later on, yeah.
Yeah.
Like actually.
There are plenty of cases where it just gives you the wrong information.
Sure.
Like plain, flat out wrong facts, So it's like you need to double check, right?
Yeah.
The other day I had an example where, I don't know, I just gave it 2 options, right? And it was like copy examples, right? And I prompted it and it gave me, it told me that, okay, the first option is better. I opened a new thread. I pasted the same prompt. And then suddenly it says that option 2 is better. Here's why. And I'm like, okay, but didn't you said that option 1 is better? So I just went to the first thread, took the bit, like the reasoning,
Yeah.
copy paste that in, and then it fixed it for me based on that reasoning. So it's like, you really need to be careful what you're doing, right? But it's good for generation, like an ideation. Like if you're in the meeting, right, and you want to brainstorm really quickly, it's good for that too.
Sure.
Yeah, I had another idea of using it as a chatbot, like creating your own GPT for copy review, right?
Yes.
So it's not necessarily something that you would have to rely 100% on, but it's just that when you're designing, sometimes like you want to use real copy at the same time, but you also don't want to spend too much time thinking about it, and especially about very like boring stuff like date formats, So having your own GPT for a specific application that you're working on, that knows the tone that it should use, that have like, you need to obviously feed it with a few examples, but like it knows all the utilities and like remembers the date formats and what format should be used for which context, all that stuff, is
preferences
would be very helpful.
It's very helpful, yeah.
Other than that, like I think, well, I haven't used Figma's Make Design yet, but I think it's going to be a great tool again for people to ideate, to generate ideas quickly.
Right.
So imagine we're in a meeting and you just type in a prompt. You have something to talk about right away, right in front of you. It's not going to be perfect ever, but it's there in front of you, and you can refer to things. You can point at things and talk about it and have discussions. And I think that's where Make Design will be very valuable, because it also kind of democratizes design. So now, like, no more gatekeeping, right? Like even product owners, product managers, or CEOs can just jump in and generate ideas, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool about it.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't. Do you have anything else?
Maybe for the translation, if we work like all our interface in English, for example, but we want to have it in Danish, there is some plugin to just translate. I don't know what is the technology behind.
No.
But it's really useful for us, so we don't have to just recreate the interface and change one label by one label.
Exactly. Change all the text.
Change in one click.
Yeah, that's very nice. Both for exploring how it looks in different languages, like German, for example, which is notorious for being like terribly long words. Does anything break? But also just practically.
Yes.
We actually need to have it in Spanish, Danish, in most cases for us. Cool. That was some good stuff.
Also, another thing that I just forgot to mention, but I would like to mention it now. I'm not very proficient in coding, right? But it does, like, having ChatGPT allows me to generate code, right? And enrich functionality of websites.
Yes.
And that's a game changer for me.
Yes.
Just because I do know what I want and I am able to describe the logic of it, right? It's just that it's annoying for I don't remember the structure or the syntax of JavaScript, right? Like or React or whatever I'm working in. So it's just it's nice when you can just describe something, and obviously in a lot of cases the code doesn't work, or it doesn't work as you would within the first go, but then you can optimize it, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true.
You can also go to the console, see what errors are there, copy paste those errors.
Oh right, yeah, have that communication with it.
You can,
exactly.
You can tell it, okay, I'm getting these errors. Can you fix it?
Yeah,
can you do something about it? I love that about it.
Yeah, I've seen you use that quite a few times. It's very nice. Also bridging the gap between developers and designers if need be. I think for it's not available now, but what's really going to be powerful someday is the whole, you mentioned make design, but also being able to build new things based on the already existing stuff that we have, like the component library we already have in place. For now, at least, make design and things similar to that is just building new stuff based on whatever data it has.
Yeah.
The most interesting part is going to be when a company like Uber or Google, whoever, who has a very solid foundation can just tap into that and make new things based on what they already have. That's also going to be very useful for us at some point.
Yeah, it would.
Component libraries and design systems that we built for clients.
Also, like, imagine all these small utility features that, you could use in your component library.
Yeah.
Giving you insights on, missing button states, right? Yeah, I think it's, again, there's no one size fits all, so it really depends on your business and what kind of application you're dealing with. So, I don't know, Stephanie mentioned the ProBinder example. If you were to have a customer support application, that would be maybe ticket resolution rate, right?
Right.
Or time it takes to resolve a ticket.
Yes.
Generally speaking, like time it takes to complete a task is a good metric.
Yes.
Right? So you always wanna reduce the time it takes to complete whatever. That's how we make our user's life a bit easier.
Yes.
But yeah, the main thing is identifying those KPIs, those metrics that can guide your way.
Yeah, exactly.
And understanding whether it's actually improving experience.
Exactly. Like if it's effective or productive, or if it's even worth doing. And this question is by is a question that I know one of you wanted to answer or talk about a lot, at least, is the ethical side of implementing AI into your software products. Is there anything special in you guys' mind that we should consider as designers or developers or whoever is building the product when we start implementing these AI features?
Yes. I think. Okay. I think we have to be careful to use AI for good reason. Like as a designer, we have to keep in mind that our goal is to improve the user experience, but AI is not good for everything. I think we have to just ask ourselves the question before implementing the features. I will take the example of a watch, a connected watch. There is in a lot of watch like a assistant for your activities, and sometimes the assistant can give you advice like burn more calories during the day. But is it good for the user to receive this type of advice? Because we don't really know what the user can feel.
Right.
If it's okay, is it healthy for him to receive this type of advice, or maybe it will give him like a lot of stress? Or we just have to think about this type of question before think about AI.
Right, especially in
yes.
in that industry, in that space you're talking about too, like health or medical.
For all the features, but I think mostly for AI, mostly for AI because we can think it's really cool to add AI, but just think about what there is behind the features we want to add.
Yeah, the people behind the features.
Yes.
Who's using them. That makes sense. You have any considerations?
Yeah, I don't know if it's something up to designers or developers to decide. I don't think it is. I think it's up to business owners to decide. But what I dislike and what I consider unethical is forcing people to, or not giving people an option or opting out their data be used for training. And again, I'm going to mention Adobe. Like Figma does it a little bit more graceful, right? It's very easy to find in the settings. You can opt out. Boom. Whereas Adobe, if you're in a meeting, right, with your client and you just open your laptop, boom, you have a model with a button, agree. So they give you a notice, and the only thing you can do is to agree in order to continue working. That's just not very ethical, in my opinion.
No.
That's predatory business practice.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I like that.
You're not giving user choice.
No.
And it's their data after all.
True.
So it's don't be like Adobe. That's
I think
good advice.
Generally that's a good advice. And with the opting out of the data thing, that is a big, because they're gaining a lot from it. Adobe, for example, of your data.
Yeah.
And might come back to haunt you in different ways. Especially if you, let's say, Uber is a great example. If they have some sort of, not monopoly, but they are a pretty big ride-sharing app, and they have some very, very talented and very hardworking designers who have designed a lot of complex user journeys or interactions. And if Adobe is able to kind of take all of that UX and all that good practice and put that into their AI, and any company really could use this to prompt it to make some sort of ride-sharing application. What's the best kind of journey for that? And they're able to kind of pick apart. You could do that too manually, but it's just the idea of making it so easily accessible to copy other people's work. Very unethical, I agree.
I'm also wondering, like, from the legal perspective, right?
Right.
A lot of, like, for example, our customers, right?
Yeah.
With some of our clients, we do sign some sort of non-disclosure agreement.
Right.
Right? So, like, I'm just wondering, how would that work from a legal perspective?
There is a clash there, I imagine.
There's a clash there. So, like, it's another thing to think about.
But yeah, for the smart people, not
us.
not me at least. But it sounds like there could be an issue there. Yeah, that's true. Last question I have for this episode is, now that we're seeing AI becoming a commodity in our workflows as designers and product developers, is there any opportunities for us as designers and new designers, startup founders, to kind of make themselves stand out in such a saturated market? Like when we're talking AI, because the thesis is, at least what we're talking about, is everything's going to look more of the same now because AI is generating things and we're basing things on that. Is there any opportunities you guys see as designers or business, whatever it might be?
I think the AI can't answer to everything. So maybe we will have visual can be similar with AI, but for complex software, we really need to have our vision on the design for the user experience, for example. So for me, we can maybe use AI for some to help us during the process, but at the end, we really need to have our eyes for to build the product.
Yeah.
So I think the AI can, we can focus on more complex things,
right,
thanks to the AI.
Yeah, so the opportunity is, especially when we work on more complex stuff, to, again, remove some of the mundane, more trivial stuff from the designer, so you can focus on the more complex stuff.
Yes.
That's a great point.
Yeah, what Stephanie said.
Great.
I think all those very simple UI patterns, interaction design patterns, is going to be kind of outsourced eventually to features like make design, just because it's so easy, right? Like you don't really need to even think about it that much when you're designing it as a designer, right? Because but I do think that you will still have an opportunity to kind of cut through, like we'll have to, in order for the app or the experience to be a little bit more noticeable, because I do think that generally speaking, the quality on average will be getting will improve overall.
Yeah.
But it's just that in order to stand out from the competition, you'll have to do more.
Yeah.
Then like right now, there are some maybe simple tricks there and there that you can do, to stand out from the competition.
Sure.
If you hire an agency to create a website for you, you'll already stand out, right? In the future, that might not be enough, right? Like,
right.
You'll need really to find a specialized people that can help you with that.
Yeah.
To make that website look different.
Yeah, a few different look different.
Break some rules.
Yeah.
To stand out from what is already out there.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, like I do think that the quality of everything will just
increase. Yeah.
It'll increase incrementally.
Yeah. I think you're right.
So we won't see at some point. I think we'll start seeing less and less, let's say, unresponsive websites, right? These, like accessibility issues. That's my hope, at least, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, both the responsive part, but also the accessibility part. I hadn't considered that. Yeah, so the bottom level is going to increase, so the overall average is going to be pushed up. That's true.
Yeah, and also like as junior designers, like at the beginning, I remember I struggled with my layer structure, naming the layers, auto layout. All those things are no longer is going to be a concern.
No,
in the future,
it's automated.
It's going to be done for you.
Yeah.
It's still good to have that understanding in the back of your head.
Yeah.
So you're not dependent on it.
Yes.
But it's not going to be as important skill to have in the future.
Right.
So
Okay. Yeah, so we can work, there's some opportunities to maybe become a bit more niche in terms from a design perspective as a designer. So you can focus on handling more of the complex stuff, some of the more complex user journeys or interactions, designs. And there's also an opportunity to creatively trying to break some rules, as you say.
yeah, and because all these, I don't know, let's use make design as an example.
Yes.
Right now you also have Framer, AI generator, right?
Sure.
I mean, the data that they're being powered by is usually generic stuff. Like at least Framer, I think the outputs that I've seen so far, website is the most generic shit ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Could not make it more generic than the way it is now.
No.
And I think it'll stay generic.
Yeah.
Like, because majority of the websites out there are generic.
True.
And so for you not to be generic, you'll have to still, either you find somebody specialized enough that can help you to stand out, or you gain your skills yourself. Maybe you have somebody in-house, and
that's true.
You'll have to customize that experience, whatever you're working on.
Yeah, to stand out. True. And I think in general, communication is going to be like the tone of voice and everything, like creating like your identity from a communication standpoint is going to be very crucial too, to stand out. We talked about storytelling at some point in another episode of how you present your product is one thing, and everything is going to be so easy to just generate a website with Framer, for example. It's just going to be the same boilerplate kind of sections and da-da-da.
So maybe they will be responsive and they'll look
great,
nice.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be it's
just the same old thing. Yeah,
same old.
Exactly. And if you're competing, there's in a crowded market, it's gonna be, you have an opportunity to stand out through the creative, through the communication, through a better user experience when it gets a bit more complicated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think it's like a new skill. Like, we learn design a lot, but now we also have to learn how to use AI to improve, because we can't just have like basic prompt to have a good result. So we need to keep learning.
Yeah, and that counts for every profession really, with the AI
profession,
like the prompt engineering as they call it. Yes, but the design is very, I guess there are some certain prompts and certain ways to use ChatGPT, for example, to help you, so it's not that generic. Anything else in terms of this whole better UX with AI? Anything else we haven't touched on or feel like mentioning here at the end?
I think we covered it pretty well.
Okay.
I think we covered it pretty well. I don't know if you...
No, I agree with you. Had a lot of interesting things.
Yes, I think this will be a long, great episode about AI. That's nice. Well, then I think the last thing to do is wrap it up and tell us, if you've been listening this far, you stuck to the end. Let us know what you think about what we talked about, the podcast. Rate it in any way you see fit, 1 to 5. 1 star if it's very bad, and a 5 star if it's very good. And thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Very welcome.
It's always a pleasure.
I'm happy to hear. We also have to thank Philippe, I think, on the production side, managing all the cameras and the equipment, and Dario too for editing the episode in the end. See if he can make something great out of this conversation. Cool.
All right.
Thank you.